Friday, September 8th, 2017. You are listening to Inception Radio Network, voice of the fringe majority. This is Carol Carl with UFO Headline News. Tonight, headline, earthsky.org, Moon and Uranus in Pisces. The waning gibbous moon and planet Uranus, the seventh planet outward from the sun, are near each other on the sky's dome tonight in front of the constellation Pisces the Fishes. Although Uranus will remain within Pisces borders for the rest of this year, the moon will leave Pisces after a day or two. Around the world, the moon and Uranus will rise over the eastern horizon by about mid-evening. Although you can find out more specific times, there's an astronomical almanac you can link to later. Simply head on over to ufoheadlinenews.com. It'll be there. With the moon so bright and so close to Uranus on the sky's dome, you're not likely to glimpse Uranus with the unaided eye. Back on March 13th, 1781, Uranus was the first planet to be discovered by telescope. William Herschel did that. At a distance of about 19 astronomical units from Earth right now, this world is pretty easy to see through binoculars. But you've got to know exactly where to look. So here comes that chart you can check out. It says here, people with good vision and good charts can see Uranus with the unaided eye on a dark, moonless night. In your quest to find Uranus, first make friends with the constellation Pisces. You can do that right after the moon leaves the evening sky, and starting in a few more days from now. And if you're familiar with the great square of Pegasus, well, you can jump off from there to the constellation Pisces the Fishes. And then, using that sky chart and binoculars, you just might catch Uranus, the seventh planet from the sun. So here's ye old bottom line. The moon and the planet Uranus both reside right now in front of the constellation Pisces the Fishes. That's right now, as in September 8th, 2017. Go on out there, have a look, enjoy. There's a place at earthsky.com called Astronomy Essentials, and they bring us this headline: Giant sunspots and solar flares, Aurora alert. Sure, we're headed toward solar minimum, but that didn't keep the sun from acting up this week. Since last weekend, two giant sunspots, they've got names, AR2673 and its pal, AR2674, have been seen from around the world by those using safe solar filters. They've been seen even with the safely filtered eye alone, making their way across the sun's face. These active regions, that's capital A, capital R, on the sun, spawned multiple moderate M-class flares September 4th and 5th. And then, on September 6th, 2017, Sunspot AR2673 erupted in a powerful X9.3 class solar flare, the strongest solar flare in more than a decade. Spaceweather.com, yep, we visited their site yesterday, reported the X-rays and UV radiation from the blast ionized the top of Earth's atmosphere. In the process of emitting these flares, AR2673 also blasted a coronal mass ejection, or a CME, into space in Earth's direction. It's already arrived. We talked about it yesterday. Here's the quote from spaceweather.com. A CME struck Earth's magnetic field during the late hours of September 6th. So far, the impact has done little to stoke strong geomagnetic activity. Another CME is on the way, however, and it's more potent, having been accelerated in our direction by the powerful X9 class solar flare previously. NOAA forecasters say strong G3 class geomagnetic storms are possible perhaps today, September 8th, when that inbound CME arrives. Reporting for another website, skyandtelescope.com, Bob King wrote that there may be a good shot at seeing the Aurora Borealis from the northern border states as far south as Illinois and Oregon. But he also said this, quote, "The timing couldn't be worse. It's full moon, and western skies are filled with smoke from wildfires. A strong storm would likely still show up as bright arcs or balletic rays dancing across the northern sky, perhaps. If AR2673 continues spouting flares, auroras could also appear later this week, when the moon won't be so much of a problem." End quotes. And that's why Bob King advises you to keep a lookout throughout the weekend. SpaceWeather.com agrees about those Aurora watches and also throws in this historic note that we also covered yesterday. How epic historically is this event? And here's the answer again. This is a decade-class flare. A list of the most powerful solar flares recorded since 1976 ranks the September 6th flare at number 14. It's tied with a similar explosion in 1990. However, compared to that iconic Carrington event of 1859, that's the one where the telegraph operators got the shock of this solar flare and were literally knocked to the ground off their telegraph operating chairs. And also those more recent Halloween storms, 2003. So this event is relatively mild. Modern power grids, telecommunications, and other sun-sensitive technologies should weather this storm with little difficulty. On the other hand, sky watchers could see some fantastic auroras before this week is over, and ham radio operators will surely be noticing strange propagation effects while the sun exerts its influence on the ionosphere of planet Earth. Here's the bottom line. It's been a week of giant sunspots and solar flares. Watch for auroras into this weekend. Sunspots, auroras, and flares, oh my. Thanks to a stringer, we got a tip about this. We found the initial headline and then a story that accompanies it. Here's the first. It's just a snippet. Headline, SpaceX launches Air Force's super secret mini shuttle. This is from CTV News Canada with a byline for Marcia Dunn, who writes it for the Associated Press. Cape Canaveral, Florida. SpaceX launched the Air Force's super secret space shuttle yesterday, Thursday, a technology tester capable of spending years in orbit. The unmanned Falcon rocket blasted off from Florida's Kennedy Space Center as schools and businesses boarded up for Hurricane Irma on its way. It's flight number 5 for one of these crewless mini shuttles, known as the X-37B Orbital Test Vehicle. The 2 Air Force space planes have already logged a combined 5.5 years in orbit, but officials won't say what the spacecraft are doing up there. The last mission lasted almost 2 years and ended with a touchdown last May at the runway formerly used by NASA's space shuttles. The first X-37B launched in 2010. And as usual, SpaceX landed its leftover booster back at Cape Canaveral for eventual reuse. Here's the companion headline, the same story, different source. SpaceX successfully launches mysterious X-37B spaceplane and recovers first stage. Daryl Ethington gets the byline here. He wrote this for TechCrunch. SpaceX can add another first to its ever-increasing list. On Thursday, it successfully launched the United States Air Force's X-37B experimental spaceplane for the first time for SpaceX. This makes it the only launch provider to accomplish this, besides United Launch Alliance, and should help ensure SpaceX gets more business from the United States defense contracts in the future. The launch vehicle used was SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket. It took off from the company's LC-39A launch facility. The Falcon 9 deployed the X-37B orbital test vehicle, as this payload is officially called, and then its first stage booster returned to Earth for a planned recovery at Cape Canaveral Air Force Base. They're going to use SpaceX's LZ-1 landing pad for that recovery. The goal? To get the launch up before the arrival of Hurricane Irma, and they succeeded. While the specifics of the X-37B's mission aren't available to the public, it will be, quote, conducting experiments, end quotes, post-launch. The last mission saw it in orbit of Earth for 2 years before returning via a landing in May. This mysterious X-37B, it's built by Boeing. It's basically a crewless vehicle, but it looks like the space shuttle on a smaller scale. It's also designed to land like the shuttle, using a landing strip like you'd use for an airliner. We've heard this thing described as being only 15 feet wide, wing to wing. It weighs about 11,000 pounds, we hear. The X-37B is the first crewless space plane for the United States. It's designed for reusability at a reasonable cost. Its aim? To fly and test new tech. and to return experimental results in a way that protects cargo and makes it suitable for post-operation examination. One of the goals with this launch was basically just to prove SpaceX as a viable launch option. Boeing says it will help ensure flexibility and continued viability of the X-37B for experimental use. Lots of talk about this particular craft, lots of conjecture, lots of conspiracy. Let's head on over to UFOstalker.com, shall we, and gather up this story. It's a sighting from Penn Argyl, Pennsylvania. It's 2 words, P-E-N, second word, Argyl, A-R-G-Y-L. It's MUFON case number 86550. The date of this sighting is the 7th of September this year. It got a same-day report. Here's what the summary says. 4th time object was spotted in same location. Yikes. There are photos that accompany this. They're striking. Check them out later. They'll be posted at ufoheadlinenews.com. Sighting specifics categories. A viewing distance here, over 1 mile. Altitude, over 500 feet without cloud cover. The sighting duration, 1 hour and 18 minutes. Object features, unknown. Object flight path, hovering, then path. Object shape, sphere. Let's read. On September 7th, 2017, I observed an object in the sky from 3:45 a.m. until 5:03 a.m. At that time, the object slowly started accelerating upward and then disappeared all of a sudden. This object hovered roughly around 10,000 feet, maybe a little less. Basically, it was the same altitude that small aircraft fly. I did use my compass on my cell phone to roughly get its position from the back of my house where I was standing. It was 83 degrees east. From what I would assume, this object tried to maintain a fixed position, but it wobbled slightly back and forth, trying to do so. I tried taking several photographs of the object with my cell phone. One photograph, when I enlarge it, it almost looks like there are 3 windows on the craft and a slight outline of the craft. This is not the first time that I spotted this aircraft. There were 3 other occasions I spotted the same object over a 3-month period of time. The first occasion, I got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and I spotted this object out in the distance through my bedroom window. And because it was far away, at that point I just thought it was a star, maybe a satellite reflecting the night sky. But then a week and a half later, I spotted the same object. This time it was changing colors, radically, back and forth, moving. So at that time I had no idea what to make of it. And ever since then, when I get up at night to use the bathroom, I keep looking out the window to see if I can spot that object again. And about 3 weeks later, it was there again, but it was still too far away to see exactly what it was. But on September 7th, 2017, early this morning, the object was in the sky once again. This time it was really low and very close. So I got my shoes on and went outside to take some photographs of it, to watch it. And then at 5:03 a.m., when dawn just started to break, this object started moving away at a slow acceleration, and all of a sudden, it just took off. There's nothing that I know of that could accelerate like this object did. In that split second, it reminded me of what you see in a Star Trek show when the Enterprise takes off. That's the only way I can explain the sudden acceleration of this object. I'm hoping this object comes back again. Thank you. Thank you, witness. Excellent account. How vexing to see something so dramatic more than once. What in the world? Or out of the world? Here's a short report we picked up over at the website openminds.tv. It's posted by Alejandro Rojas. Headline: UFO witness spots large spherical object during hike in Portugal. Here's what the witness wrote verbatim. I was hiking on the mountain and taking pictures when I observed a spherical object the size of a helicopter. It flew silently and too fast. I immediately started shooting. While doing this, I lost the visual reference of the object. When I turned to look at the sky in search of the first object, a second object appeared, same speed, following the same path. These objects traveled from southeast to northwest at a speed of over 300 kilometers per.
You're listening to Love Advice with Leanne. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Leanne. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Why, in your professional opinion, do you never take my calls off the air?
Is this Carl?
Yep, it's Carl. I mean, we had a few dates. Everything was great. I thought,
Well, when you switch to Geico, you could save a lot of money on car insurance.
Okay, awesome.
You should call them.
I will.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Hour at an altitude of perhaps 100 meters to 200 meters, and at a distance of less than 3 kilometers from my observation point. I know that mylar balloons can look odd floating around, and they're often reported as UFOs. However, these balloons are typically a regular shape, and they're smooth. Could this be a half-deflated mylar balloon? If so, it wouldn't have been as large as a helicopter, and the witness describes it as large as a helicopter. Alejandro Rojas, who wrote this article, says it looks to be rather large in the photo. Yep, there's a photo you can check out later at ufoheadlinenews.com. And it notes at the end, the vast majority of UFO sightings turn out to be mundane objects. But once in a while, there are sightings much more difficult to explain. Let's zip from Portugal to the United Kingdom, where we find this headline from Redditch. Bright horseshoe-shaped object, the 2nd of August, 2017. This is from the website uk-ufo.com.uk. The location, Redditch. The time, 23:50. The witness's name is Ellie. Here's what Ellie says. I keep the window open every night when I go to bed. I like to keep the blinds open so I can view the stars if they're showing. I was watching an airplane go past. I had just thought to myself, I wonder if I'll ever see another UFO again. I've seen 2 others. The last one was 6 years ago. So, as the airplane passed from right to left, I noticed something that lit up extremely bright, like when you burn magnesium. This brightness seemed to be hanging over where the plane had just flown, as if it was inspecting it. It looks to be a horseshoe shape. It was upside down, a U, and it moved slowly downwards, getting a little dimmer. And then it sort of turned as if it had been vertical, facing downward. Now, before it turned, it was horizontal and facing away from me, and that's the direction I was looking. As it started to move again, it moved slowly, but then it went extremely fast until it was just a pinprick of light and then out of sight within about 3 seconds. My partner doesn't believe me. Oh, Ellie. Yep, that happens. Well, maybe next time partner will witness as well. Shift in trajectory. We're going to Trinidad, Casanare, Colombia for this MUFON sighting. It's number 86535. The date of this sighting is September 5th, 2017. It was reported September 6th, 2017. Summary: a lot of lights flying in different directions. Sighting specifics offer us a viewing distance, in this case, as unknown. The altitude was over 500 feet without cloud cover. The entire sighting duration was 2 hours, but the object features still get that vague description, unknown. The flight path with directional change, and this object was star-like in shape. There isn't any description of meteorology at the time of this event, but here is the detailed sighting. It's written, in fact, in points 1 through 6, so here we go. 1. In my house after work. 2. Watching the sky on a clear, bright night. 3. I haven't seen that quantity of lights. 4. A lot of lights. Some disappeared. Others were then flying in different directions. Point 5. My girlfriend was scared. I was excited. Point 6. These lights were in a very long line, and we saw them a long time. We saw them for an hour, and then we got tired. When we stopped watching, these lights were still there. The lights were all still there. Wow. That's all we can say, just wow. From Columbia, hang on, we're going to the state of Wisconsin in the United States, where we pick up a sighting courtesy of UFOstalker.com from the city of Germantown. It's MUFON case number 86411. Date of the sighting, 9/1/2017. Same day report. Summary. A box-like object out of the northeast. It turned over and became saucer-like, flew off northwest. Did not shine. Dull appearance. Sighting specifics give us a viewing distance this time, 501 feet, eventually 1 mile. The altitude was over 500 feet without any cloud cover. This object features are reported dome-like. The object flight path, hovering and then a path that included directional change. This object shape, chevron. Here we go. My girlfriend and I were at Walmart in Germantown, Wisconsin. She was inside shopping and I was in the car with our dog. I happened to look up and I saw this box-like thing in the sky. It flew out of the northeast and flew to the northwest. As it moved along, this thing changed shapes from initially being box-like to then a more saucer-like appearance. There wasn't any wind to blow it along. At first I thought, could this be some sort of big balloon, maybe a partially deflated balloon? But it kept traveling to the northeast as though it was being intelligently piloted. It was weird because it was changing shapes, from first the dark box-like object to the more saucer-shaped object. This thing was dull in appearance, and it seemed not to reflect light. It wasn't shiny. It flew towards Walmart out of the northeast when I first saw it, but then it kept precisely on the same course. At one point, I actually opened the car door to observe this object, but it traveled pretty quickly over the Walmart building, and I lost sight of it. It caught my eye, as I'm kind of a fan of airplanes, and I watch the skies frequently, but I've never seen anything like this. Perhaps just E.T. doing a little shopping at Walmart. You never know. We know we'll be here this weekend with Off the Beaten Path, where we go, well, off the beaten path, pick up stories on cryptids, archaeological finds, etc., and the usual UFOs. So join us, gentle listeners. Same time, same station. Now we've got to fly because that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to Inception Radio Network. Follow this broadcast at UFOheadlinenews.com or iHeartRadio. Take care of each other. We're all in this together. This is Carol Carl. See you tomorrow.